Good afternoon. Hi, friends. How are all of you? Oh my God, Bridget! So I didn't look at the table of contents, and I didn't know what I was going to be reading this time. So, Bridget, this is your commission for supporting me on Patreon for the month of August 2017. I'm reading another story from the Defying Doomsday anthology, and this story happens to be from my friend Seanan McGuire. It is called Something in the Rain. I don't know anything about it. I'm very excited / terrified because Seanan fucks me up every goddamn time. All right, so thank you, Bridget. Are you ready? Let's do this. Oh, God. The end of the world was a misnomer. The end of the age of humanity would have been a better way of putting it. Like the way we used to talk about the end of the age of the dinosaurs. Or maybe the end of the first age of humanity. You know, the one where they fucked everything up. There we go. That is a perfect title. We could still come back. The ballgame wasn't over yet. Just the first 9 innings with the remains of the species clinging for dear life to the last few seconds of overtime. We could still pull it out if it really worked. We weren't going to. I knew that. Oh, God, why? Everyone knew that. When the comet hit the dinosaurs, they were staring blankly at the sky, trying to figure out what that glowing light was. Humanity, we knew exactly what was coming. We'd seen it on the news, and we'd read about it in the papers. Even my mom knew about it. And she was always Susie Sunshine, refusing to admit that anything ever could be less than perfect. Or anything could ever be less than perfect, excuse me. They'll figure out something before it gets bad enough that we need to worry, she said. They'll find a way to put things right, and then everything will be fine. You'll see. Now take your pills. That was how she ended every sentence with me for years. Now take your pills. Even when it wasn't time for pills, even when I'd taken them hours ago, now take your pills was her solution and panacea for everything. Maybe she thought that once they built up in my system, I'd somehow be cured, and she could finally have the perfect little family she'd always dreamed of. Mom always was one for magical thinking. The planet didn't know that most of the mammals were gone, or maybe it did know and it was happy about it. It didn't matter much. The world kept spinning and the sun kept rising, and while there were no clocks around worth trusting anymore, I had a copy of the Farmer's Almanac, and I had a window that faced east. Every morning, or every day, the sun rose. Let me do that again. Sorry, Bridget. Every day, the sunrise woke me, and I looked up the time. That kept things running steady. If I knew what time I started, I would know what time it was until I fell asleep and my clock reset itself again. The last of the night rain lingered in the yard until 8:52 a.m., 4 minutes longer than the day before, and 6 minutes longer than the day before that. Winter was coming and stretching the bad weather out like a rubber band that wouldn't snap back until summer. I moved as close to the window as I dared, squinting up at the sky, the color of a third-day bruise, all watery yellow and damaged apricot. 2 morning rains ago today, then one in an hour or so, a second right around noon. The first rain would be clean or close enough to it. The first rain of the day always was. The bad stuff fell out during the night, and it took a little while for it to build up again. That didn't mean the rain was safe. Clean didn't mean the same as safe anymore, if it ever had, but meant I could go out a little if I was quick and careful. 2 raincoats, a roll of plastic wrap around my legs where they met my rain boots, and a pair of latex gloves later. I looked like something out of a low-budget horror movie, but I was as close to waterproof as it was possible to be. I clomped toward the door where my umbrella and plastic kitty wagon awaited. The cat was there too. Yes, kitty. She yowled when she saw me unlocking the door. I pushed her back with my foot, offending her dignity so much that she went off to sulk in the kitchen, well away from any escape. Sorry, kitty, but you might be the last kitty in the whole world, and I don't want to lose you, I said. Oh, she couldn't understand me, of course, but I felt better for having said it out loud. I wasn't sure what I would do if I lost Kaylee. She was the last really good thing in the world, and she kept me from giving up on my eastward-facing room and my dwindling supply of pills in favor of sleeping someplace dark and swallowing only what I wanted inside my body instead of what I needed. If I couldn't stay alive for her, who would I be staying alive for? Every one of these stories fucks me up so quickly. Me. And I knew I didn't deserve it. So I checked the tape sealing my gloves, and I checked the plastic wrapped around my legs, and I checked 3 times to be sure that the front door was locked. Old habits die harder than the human race, as it turns out. A whole lot of things do. Oh my God! Birds sang from the bushes as I walked down the street, heading for the big Target at the center of the shopping district. I couldn't drive, and so I was engaged in emptying the place out, 1 wagon load at a time. I hadn't seen signs that anyone else was looting, in the shops or elsewhere, so I didn't feel like there was any urgency. Besides, as long as I did a little bit every day, I didn't feel quite so much like stealing. I always had enough money on me to pay for what I'd taken. Even if the money never left my pocket, I could have paid, and that meant it was like I had paid. Sometimes the little workarounds were the best ones at all. The shelves at Target were a pleasing cornucopia of survival. The rains had come so quickly, when they started coming at all, that most people hadn't even started to stockpile. It would be at least a year before I had to figure out how to talk myself into breaking into the homes of my neighbors. That was going to be a fun argument. I'd need to plan for 3 or 4 days where I didn't leave the house at all, just battled my own demons until one of us came out on top. For Kaylee's sake, it would have to be the version of me that went outside and did things, not the version who hid in her room and refused to let her food touch. Neither version of me was suited to surviving in this world alone. I couldn't afford to go off my medication and let the careful, compulsive, agonized me out of her cage. But I also couldn't afford to take the dose my mother had wanted me on, both for the sake of making the pills last and because without my shadow self, perfect and precise as she wanted the world to be, I would have died with everyone else. What the fuck? When the scientists working up in the Arctic had started reporting mass die-offs of the whales and walruses, people had been sad. People were always sad when a whale died, even if they didn't care when it was another human being. But they hadn't done anything about it. The Arctic was very far away, after all, and sometimes things just died. That was the way the world worked. There was no reason to change the way we did things here at home because of something that happened far away. But this is as is usually the case with Seanan, this is too real. Even when the chemists and the biologists started anxiously saying that something was wrong, that some of the things coming out of the melting glaciers weren't supposed to be here anymore, that they were things from millions of years ago that didn't know how to play nicely with human bodies, or anything mammalian for that matter. They told us those things were coming out of the ice. They told us those things were going into the water. They told us those things were getting more and more common, that soon there would be so many of them, or so much of them. I never really understood which word was correct, and Mum was always so afraid of scaring me that she wouldn't explain, that the ocean would change forever. They told us, about a week before it happened, that there was a small chance that things were small enough to change the way the rain worked, that the things could make the rain dangerous for humans, for anything mammalian, like the dog next door that always used to bark when I was trying to have my afternoon nap, like the squirrels that used to play in the trees outside my window, like Kaylee. She used to get to go outside before the people on TV started talking about the rain. I'd had a full-scale meltdown that day, what Dad used to call a nuclear tantrum, and Mum had agreed that I could keep Kaylee indoors. She'd warned me that the cat wouldn't be happy, and I hadn't cared. Better an unhappy cat than a dead one. Besides, this made it a lot easier to find Kaylee when I wanted to pet her and play with her. I should have asked her for her to be an indoor cat years ago. Mum didn't listen to the news the way I did. She didn't tape up her windows or start spending all her time inside. And it wasn't like they knew anything for sure. They didn't know that the little things that had come out of the ice would get sucked up into the clouds, or that they would travel all over the world, or that they would start falling on the west coast at 8:17 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in August, or that they would be so very, very hungry. Although I suppose the whales should have told us that part, and the scientists definitely didn't know that the little things would get sucked back into the clouds again and again, so they could just keep falling forever. Well, now I'm full of existential terror. It had been over a week since I'd seen another mammal. There were plenty of birds. The things in the clouds didn't like the taste of feathers, I guess. The crows were getting bold. There'd always been too many of them around. They were scavengers, and people usually made a lot for them to scavenge from. With us mostly gone, no more garbage, no more roadkill, no more restaurant dumpsters. They were getting desperate. Sometimes I thought about feeding them, putting out trays of dry dog food and luring them onto my back porch. I could learn to interpret their croaks and caws, figure out how to tell them apart on sight. Maybe I could even love them a little, once they had become individuals to me, and not just a formless flock of black wings. They could keep me company in a world where all the other company was gone. But the dog food would run out eventually. I would die eventually, even if I stayed away from the rain for another 10 years. Where would the crows be then? This wasn't man's world anymore. It seemed selfish to keep forcing my sphere of influence outside the house I shared with Kaylee. Better to loot what had been left behind and wait for the rain to find its way in. It would. I knew it would. It was inevitable. It was 10:17 a.m. I had time to get back to the house, rinse the wagon in bleach, and unload the day's acquisitions before I settled into an afternoon of reading my books and petting my cat. I'd been doing homeschooling for years. I was keeping up with my classes, as much out of habit as because I needed to have something to do with my time. If the remains of humanity ever figured out how umbrellas worked, I would be all caught up on my calculus. Oh my God. A shadow moved under the trees. I ignored it and kept walking. Then the shadow stepped out into the sidewalk, revealing itself as Kathy McCallan from my old school. What the hell? She looked like hell. Her hair was scraggly and uncombed and probably hadn't been washed in weeks. She was wearing jeans. Bad call, one wrong step, and those things would be wicking up rainwater like a sponge, trapping it against her skin, and 3 sweaters layered one over the other. She probably thought they would keep her safe. She was wrong. So wrong. But I wasn't going to tell her that because she had a gun and I knew better than to argue with people who had guns. Give me the wagon, she snapped, before her face softened in confusion, eyebrows rising and lips parting. It was a classic double take. I wished I had my camera. I would have documented it. Holly? Yes, I said. I would rather not give you the wagon, if you don't mind. I worked hard to fill it up. You could be working hard too if you wanted to, instead of just threatening me with a gun. Oh my god. Oh my god, one other person survives the fucking apocalypse and it has to be the moron, said Kathy. I'm the one with the weapon. Now give me that wagon. I thought about it. I thought about it hard. I thought about how much more difficult it would be for me to do my supply runs without the wagon, which was good plastic and wouldn't melt or rot or start to smell bad. I thought about how sad Kaylee would get if I got eaten by the things in the rain because I was slow walking home with her cat food. And I shook my head. No, I said, this is my wagon. If you want a wagon, you should go and find one for yourself and use that. If you want food, you should go and find some. And you shouldn't call me moron. That's a mean word you use for someone who you think isn't as smart as you. I'm as smart as you. I'm probably even smarter. My grades are excellent. Holly, you're so great. All right. This is amazing. Then why did your mother pull you out of school, huh? I looked at her wearily. Then I looked at the sky, assessing the movement of the clouds, comparing their weight to the timetable I kept, ever updating, in my mind. Finally, I looked back to her and said, because of you. Because of your friends. Because of how you called me names and stole my books and told new kids that I always smelled like pee, even though it wasn't true and you knew it would upset me. Because you were a bully, and you liked being a bully, and no matter how much I begged you to stop, you wouldn't. Now you're still a bully. You're just a bully with a gun, and you can't have my wagon. This is so great. This is so great, Bridget. I started walking again, ducking my head down against my chest, so that if the rain came early, it wouldn't get into my eyes. That was what I was most afraid of, that my eyes would get eaten out of my head. Thank you for that fucking thought, Sean, and god damn it! And then the things in the rain would be full and leave me stumbling blind through the melted world they'd created. Kaylee would starve. So would I, but that didn't matter as much. I was the people. I had promised to take care of her, and that was something I couldn't do with my eyes melted out of my head. But, okay, oh God. Hey, where are you going? There was a sharp note of desperation in Kathy's voice, like she didn't know how to deal with the reality of what was happening. I could sympathize with that. I frequently didn't know how to deal with the reality of the world around me. But I had to learn. Every day I had to learn, and if I could do it, so could Kathy, who had waved her neurotypicality in my face like a red flag in front of a bull, claiming that it made her a better person than I could ever be. Well, fuck Kathy. Home, I said. If today's rainfall pattern follows yesterday's rainfall patterns, I have 23 minutes to get there, unload my wagon, stressing the possessive felt good, and make sure everything is clean before I put it away. I don't have time to stand here and let you bully me. We're not in school anymore, Kathy. I don't have to take it just because you want to dish it out. There was a 7-second silence, long enough for me to take 5 steps before she said in a small voice, but what's going to happen to me? You know, I don't really care, Bridget. I don't. The desperation was gone, replaced by something equally familiar. Fear. Kathy, the great boogeyman of my school days, was afraid. That was amazing enough that I had to turn around and see it with my own eyes. She was still holding the gun, but she wasn't aiming it at me anymore. She was holding it so that it pointed at the ground. She looked broken, almost like the weight of the world had become too much for her to bear. You're going to go back to wherever you've been staying since the melt came, and you're going to close your windows, and you're going to hope, I said. You have 22 minutes now. Staying dry is the best way, but you probably know that. Did you know dry shampoo is a thing? You can even stay clean when the water isn't safe. Dry shampoo and baby wipes are doing a remarkable job of keeping me presentable, even with no one around to see but Kaylee. Now that I didn't have to deal with the fuss and disruption of the shower, I was doing better about keeping myself clean than I ever had before. It was sort of sad. Even with a functional disorder that meant people would always be looking for reasons to judge me, I'd never been able to bring myself to shower on a regular basis. The ritual of it never appealed to me. Without the ritual, there was no point. You can't just leave me here, said Kathy. Oh, Kathy, this is fun. I blinked slowly, trying to make sense of her words. Yes, I can, I said finally. It's easy. All I have to do is walk away from you, and I'll be leaving you here. My home is that way. I pointed. Yours isn't. I would have noticed if you actually lived in my neighborhood, and you would probably have tried to take my wagon away before now. 21 minutes. I don't know how far away you live. You might want to get walking. I turned and resumed walking. Wait! Kathy ran to catch up, trotting along beside me. I can help you. I can pull your wagon. Then you'll have the gun and the wagon. No, it's mine. You can't have it. Excuse me. There aren't even bullets in this thing. I just wanted to scare you. Kathy sounded almost ashamed. I'm hungry. I ran out of food in the house 2 days ago. Did you try breaking into the house next door? I asked. Houses next door are a well-established source of canned goods during the apocalypse. It sounded so reasonable when I said it like that, and yet here I was, still walking to Target every day, because I couldn't stand the thought of violating the property of my neighbors. They had always been kind to me. Their being dead was no excuse for me to be a bad kid all of a sudden. I strangely get that logic, too. Kathy looked down at the sidewalk. I was scared, she said in a small voice. There was a skeleton in the living room of the house next door. Skeletons aren't scary, I said. You have a skeleton? I have a skeleton. A skeleton is just the body with its clothes off. Holly, we should be best friends. From the way Kathy looked at me, I could tell she wasn't buying it. You're still so weird, she said. She sounded almost disappointed, like the end of the human race had been intended to normalize me somehow. Are you, medicated? Are you going to go schizo and start peeing on yourself? Even during the apocalypse, you're still fucking awful. The word again followed the sentence unspoken, but there. I glared at her through my goggles. That happened once, in second grade, because my medication was wrong. I've been taking my pills. The pharmacy at Target is very well stocked. And you shouldn't say schizo. It's a bad, mean word, and it has no place in your vocabulary. Ugh, whatever. Kathy waved my criticism away. What happens when the pills run out? I don't think that's any of your business. I started walking a little faster. 19 minutes. Things moved so quickly whenever I was outside. It wasn't fair. A single hour could stretch into forever when it was just me and Kaylee. But when I needed time to go slow and treat me gently, it kept trundling along at the usual pace. You're not my mother. No one is my mother anymore. Oh, that's sad, actually. In a way, I get that it's freeing as well, but anyway. Mom and Dad had both been away from home when the rains fell. I tried to hold out hope for a little while, but it hadn't been enough to change anything. I'd found Mom's car outside the Starbucks that shared the Target parking lot. One door open and the engine long since dead. I couldn't be sure that the skeleton sprawled beside it, wearing Mom's clothes and still clutching Mom's car's keys, was her. It had been too many days since she'd been gone, and the hungry things in the rain had too much time to eat. Still, I was sure enough. Fuck. Sorry, said Kathy sullenly. I kept walking. I didn't say anything. Can I come over, please? I'm scared to be alone anymore, and I'm hungry. Please? I kept walking. I didn't say anything, not to tell her to stay or to ask her to go. As I had expected, Kathy interpreted that as permission. She followed me all the way home. We made it inside 4 minutes and 37 seconds ahead of schedule. The rain began 2 minutes and 6 seconds ahead of schedule. It was time to adjust the charts again. Jesus. Kaylee was waiting for me outside the garage door, her tail lashing and the fur on her haunches raised. Meow, she complained before rubbing herself against my calves. She left a fine sheen of white and orange hairs behind, marking me as hers and her alone. Oh, cats. I leaned down to give her head a few pats with my free hand and continued on toward the kitchen. Don't let the cat into the garage, I said. It leaks there sometimes, and she doesn't know better than to drink the water. You've a cat? Kathy sounded somewhere between disgusted and bemused, like she couldn't believe I'd been able to keep something other than myself alive for this long. I'm allergic. You can leave if you want, I said. This is her house, not yours. I kept walking. I heard the door connecting the garage to the house shut, and Kathy's footsteps following me. I smiled. It was sort of nice to have someone around to help me carry the groceries to the kitchen. Kaylee couldn't do it. Cats don't have thumbs, and she'd never learned to follow commands anyway. With Kathy, I could get it all done in half the time. Storing groceries in the kitchen probably didn't matter much now that the power was out and the fridge was just another set of shelves, but it was habit, and habits died hard. Like scrubbing the whole place down with bleach on Tuesdays to keep the mold and the mice away. Maybe the habits would also keep the things in the rain from finding a way inside, figuring out how to wheedle the delicious things out of the rigid wooden box that kept them safe and dry. Kathy stopped in the kitchen doorway, looking around the jumbled box-filled kitchen with dismay. How much food do you have? I go shopping every day except for Tuesdays when I clean the kitchen, I said. I move everything to the living room, throw away anything that's spoiled, and scrub the fixtures on the floor. Then I put it all back. "Oh my God," said Kathy, and grabbed a box of cookies, ripping it open and beginning to shovel pink and white circus animals into her mouth. Sorry, Bridget, I just realized I haven't had those in a really long time. The frosted ones, and they have the little sprinkle. God, I used to love those. I'm going to go to Target today and find them, and then spend the entire time in Target being horrified because it's actually the apocalypse. Anyway, crumbs and flecks of frosting rained down on the floor. I grimaced but didn't say anything. I could clean up once she was gone. Mum always said that I had to be polite to guests, no matter how awful they were to me. Oh my God. Please chew, I said, unable to fully contain my nervousness. If you choke to death in my kitchen, I don't know what I'll do with your body. That was a lie. Her body would still be mammalian, still meat, and the things in the rain weren't picky. They didn't care if the things they devoured were alive or dead, only that they had the right balance of protein and fats. I could throw her outside. She'd be a skeleton by morning, and I could close the blinds and ignore her. I love this character so much. Kathy swallowed hard, glaring at me the whole time. I've been starving, you spaz. Oh, God. And you're in here with, an entire grocery store all to yourself, so you'll excuse me if I don't chew too good. Kathy sucks in every way imaginable. I wanted to tell her to stop calling me names. She wasn't even sticking with the right ones. Right? I didn't have a muscular disorder. Physically, there was nothing about me that deviated from what was considered normal for a 17-year-old girl. I had mild schizophrenia, for which I was medicated, and autism, for which I was not medicated, but that only changed the way I thought, not the way I moved. And since almost all the neurotypical people I knew had been summarily eaten by the things in the rain, I wasn't really seeing my deviance as a bad thing at the moment. Right? Oh, this is so great, Bridget. Try not to throw up, and don't open any windows, I said finally. I turned, leaving her to raid my supplies, and went to check the seals on my house. Keeping out the rain was a full-time job. The house was sound and it had never leaked, but the rain had been different before. It hadn't been filled with hungry things that bit and tore. I didn't know whether they could chew through wood, but I had no reason to believe that they couldn't if they got hungry enough. I couldn't count on it. So every day, while the rain was falling, I would walk through the whole house with a roll of duct tape in my hand, looking for places that seemed damp. The tape seals around most of the windows were several inches thick by this point, getting thicker by the day. It still wasn't enough. I still couldn't be sure. Better another strip of tape than a single drop of water. By the time I finished my walkthrough, Kathy was passed out on the living room couch, snoring softly. She was still clutching the cookies in one hand, tightly as a teddy bear. I looked at her for a moment, considering my options before turning away. It was time to take my pills. Oh my God, this is amazing. After pills, I played with Kaylee until the rain stopped. 38 minutes today, 3 minutes longer than yesterday. The storms were getting more intense as we slipped down the slope toward winter. I needed to step up my scavenging expeditions, at least to make sure that we had enough bottled water and kitty litter and canned tuna to get us through spring. To spring. Canned tuna was better than canned cat food because we could both eat it if we had to. It wasn't the best thing for either of us, but it would keep us going, and that was what mattered. Maybe by spring, the hungry things in the rain would have all been flushed out, and it would be safe to go outside again. Or maybe by spring the roof would have sprung a leak and we would have been devoured in our sleep. Either way, spring would change things. Once the rain had been over for 15 minutes, I went back downstairs and shook Kathy by the shoulder. She lifted her head from one of Mum's best throw pillows, leaving a spot of drool behind, and blinked blearily at me. What? Hello, I said. The rain has stopped. Based on the time intervals of the last week, you have 47 minutes to get back to your house. Thank you for visiting. Goodbye now. Wait, what? She sat bolt upright, instantly awake. You can't kick me out. Oh my God. I frowned. Yes, I can. This is my house. I don't want you to be in it anymore. Please leave. No! Kathy shrank back in the couch, looking alarmed. There's no food. Please, I'm starving. I can pack you a lunch. I can help you. Help me with what? All you've done since you got here is eat my cookies and drool on my pillow. I have food and water for me and Kaylee to get through the winter. One person, one cat. Not two people. I can help, honest. I can. What about the cat? You said you were allergic. I can get Benadryl when I help you go to Target for more groceries. I hesitated. I didn't want her in my house. She'd never been nice to me before, and I knew full well that she was only being nice to me now because she wanted something. She wanted food and shelter and not to be alone. I understood not wanting to be alone. I didn't want to be alone either. That was why I was so careful with Kaylee, who didn't understand that the world outside had turned against her while she was sleeping, curled into a ball of formless fluff on the windowsill. Kaylee couldn't understand, so I had to understand for her. But with Kathy, it would be nice to have someone to talk to. This is my house, I said. You have to follow my rules. Kathy nodded enthusiastically. Anything. No opening the doors unless I say it's safe. No opening windows, ever. Don't waste food or water. We're going to have a hard time getting more after we finish emptying the target. Don't tease Kaylee. And don't call me bad names anymore. Ever. Sure, said Kathy. She was suddenly all smiles. That made me feel like I was making a mistake, but it was too late to take it back. Then her smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. So hey, did you, take your pills? Oh, Kathy, I hate you. I just don't at all. Anyway. Over the course of the following 3 days, we fell into an uneasy sort of pattern. Uneasy because Kathy didn't understand my rituals and had no respect for the fact that things needed to be done in a certain order. Of course not. She was filthy. Oh, God. Constantly eating, and when I suggested she take a sponge bath, a necessary waste of our precious bottled water, she sneered and said that I was one to talk, which didn't even make sense. Of course I was one to talk. I took a sponge bath every 3 days. Survival wouldn't do me any good if I got so dirty that I caught an infection from myself and died. She was really only happy when we went outside to retrieve supplies. Then she seemed almost like her old self, except this version of her old self was willing to talk to me without calling me names or asking me whether I was supposed to be in an asylum. I could have liked Kathy if she had been like this when we'd been at school together. Maybe we could have even been friends. Sometimes she asked if I missed my parents. I looked at her blankly when she did that, until eventually she stopped asking. I was good. I had no idea how to answer her. Did I wish Mom and Dad were still around? Sure. But I had Kaylee to take care of and plans to make, and there wasn't time to worry about them. Maybe someday. Not now. It was 1:15 p.m. on the 4th day when I heard the front door slam. I came out of the kitchen, wiping my hands in a cloth and looking anxiously around for invaders or army men who had come to save us from the things in the rain. I didn't see either. I just saw Kathy sucking on the side of her hand and glaring spitefully at the door. Oh no. What happened? I asked. That stupid cat scratched me, she said, taking her hand out of her mouth. I was just trying to pet her and she scratched me. Oh, God. I don't want to. Kaylee wasn't in the hall. The front door. Or in the front room or in the kitchen. It was unlikely that she would have run up the stairs if she was scared. She would have run toward me, who had always protected her, and the front door had slammed. Where's my cat? I asked. Kathy stared at me. Didn't you just hear what I said? She scratched me. Oh, I just throw Kathy out. Just leave her outside forever. She didn't have the gun anymore. I had hidden it in the garage days ago. She didn't have anything, and when I rushed her, slamming her up against the wall, she was unprepared. Where is my cat? What did you do? I demanded. You're hurt. Oh. Kathy says awful things that I don't understand why they're being said. I just don't want to say them in a video. You're hurting me, those words. Oh, I fucking hate Kathy. I hate her so much. I grabbed her by the hair and dragged her to the front door. Kaylee wasn't on the porch. I shoved Kathy outside, watching as she stumbled down the 2 low brick steps. What are you doing? She tried to rush the door. I slammed it in her face. She began pounding. Let me in! Not until you find my cat. It felt good to yell. Don't you think you can start breaking windows? You won't get past the plastic. Maybe that was true and maybe it wasn't, but Kathy was a bully and a coward. She didn't know any better. She hit the door again. 11 minutes to today's estimated rainfall, I called. Better get looking. Please, she said. I told you, this is her house, not yours. I locked the door. Then I went back to the kitchen and got the biggest knife I could find. It felt good in my hand. I sat down on the hallway floor and waited. 11 minutes later, oh no, the rain began falling. 12 minutes later, I began to cry. The rain lasted 43 minutes and 19 seconds. When it tapered off, I waited 10 more minutes before unlocking the door. The hungry little things in the rain had been very busy. Kathy had tried to run, but you can't outrun the rain. They had stripped her down to the bone in the middle of the street. I walked to her, clumsy in my waders, and used a stick to roll what remained of her body over. There were no smaller bones beneath her. She hadn't been holding Kaylee. I don't want to read this anymore, but this is really upsetting. Fucking hate Kathy, but she fucking deserved it. I left the front door open as I wandered the block. Kaylee, I called. Here, kitty kitty. Nice kitty kitty. Come home, please. 10 minutes to the next estimated rainfall. I needed to turn back. I couldn't turn back. Here, kitty. Kaylee meowed. I turned to see her push her way out through a dog door. What? She walked to the edge of the porch and stopped, looking with disdain at the puddles on the path. I laughed and hurried to scoop her into my arms. She didn't even squirm as I carried her home. Wait, was she in the house the whole fucking time? We made it inside 5 minutes before the rain came down again. Maybe by spring the hungry things would be gone. Maybe by spring we would be gone. It didn't matter. We'd each other, and we had the time between now and then. Come on, kitty, I said, putting her down on the hallway floor. It's time for my pills. The end of the world was a misnomer. Where I was standing, the world was continuing just fine. Oh, it was, Bridget, I was so worried this was going to end badly. Oh. Fuck, it's so good. That was so good. Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. And Seanan. Fucking, what a great fucking story. Okay, I got one more thing to watch for Patreon, but thank you, Bridget, for supporting me on Patreon and being the best. I will see you next month for the next story by whoever it's by. I don't even know. Okay, see ya.